Hey everyone, how's everybody doing this morning? Thanks for joining me today on my Sunday live stream. I really appreciate your time here, and today is a special guest Sunday where I try to bring in some guests from the other channels that are, doing a great job, and I think we're talking to for a few minutes to see how they're doing, give you an opportunity to talk to them as well, because they don't live stream like I do as quite as much, if ever, that I know of. And I really learned a lot from both of their channels when I started, gosh, about 4 years ago. And Matti more so recently, because I did start buying some Panasonic cameras, which, I don't talk about a lot in my channel, but they are excellent cameras. And so my guest today, I should say, is Matti Sulanto from SulantoBlog, and I also have Emily Lowrey from Micro Four Nerds, and all of their relevant links and channels and other information will be in the description below. So I invite you to check those out when you get a chance during the stream or after the stream. They have a lot to offer with either newsletters or educational material. And also, if you'd like to buy them a coffee, that would be great too. Thank them for their time with me today, because I really appreciate it. So without further ado, well, let me check who's here first. We have Dawood, Adam, wow, usual crowd, Ronald, Stephen Page, good to see you, Terry, Andreas, John Yutze, Nature with Music. So a lot of you guys are here. I really appreciate you coming in to join us today. But okay, let me bring them into the stream, because I'm pretty sure you can't see them right now. There we go.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. So, yeah, I'm gonna just ask them a few questions to kind of get started, talk about Micro Four Thirds, and the camera industry in general, what's been going on, and then after that we'll go ahead and open up the live chat to your questions, because they're much more qualified to answer questions about generally Panasonic cameras in general, because they're both heavy Panasonic users. But that would be my first question, actually. Let me start with you, Matti. I think that you're a Lumix Ambassador. What does that mean exactly, Ambassador? What does that status mean? What benefits do you get? Or I'm just curious, because I'm not familiar with that program at all.
All right. I try to make this short. First of all, I have almost direct contact to Panasonic. I mean, not to Japan directly, but to the Nordic headquarters. And then I get direct support. If I need something, I can loan cameras and lenses. And on the other hand, they can use my name or pictures if they want to somewhere, and like marketing or whatever. And hold on, I forgot. And if there's they organize workshops or something, they might ask me to lead a workshop or whatever. That's, I think, the short of it. And but I don't get paid to, unfortunately, get paid to make my videos. And now, especially that I made videos on the brand new S5, a lot of people suggested that Panasonic made me to make those videos, but that's not true. I make videos for my channel. The topics that I choose are the ones that I feel are interesting, and Panasonic has nothing to say about that. And I thought that was kind of funny, because never ever before people had suggested something like that when I made Micro Four Thirds topics, but only when I made full frame topics, people said, "Now Panasonic made you do that," but they never said the same thing when I have had a Micro Four Thirds topic.
Really?
So, yeah. So, but anyway, that's kind of the
okay. Well, let me ask you, like, if they loan you a camera or they loan you a lens, what is the expectation? Do they just want you to take pictures with it and send them in so they can use them, or do they? What are their expectations when they loan you equipment?
No, well, they want, of course, they want my kind of opinion how it is, and of course, the one of the reasons, one of the whole ambassador thing is, regardless of the brand, is of course that I use certain gear, and the idea is that when people see how great pictures I make with that gear,
Yeah.
other people want to use the same gear as well. I guess that's the truth of it, of course. But
Yeah.
I think it should come naturally. At least I don't feel I'm advertising Panasonic whenever I make videos. I just make videos that are, interesting to me, or the topics that are interesting to me. I don't, and if Panasonic came to me and asked me to make a certain topic, then we would discuss if that topic is good for my channel and so on. But so far, they never asked me to make any topic or any video.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So, because I always had this impression, because I get, as we all do, we get offers to review products, and they expect us to make a video and put reviews in, and
Yes.
also the expectation is that it's going to be a good review, right? They'll flat out say it sometimes in the email to me that we'd like a positive review, and so my response is, well, I'm not going to promise that, but anyway. So
yes, yes, of course, because I'm a Lumix ambassador. Of course, I think positively about
right,
the cameras
right,
and brand, but I still try to be honest with my gear reviews. And if I only say positive things, it's not credible. People don't believe me, and the audience is not stupid. You should never underestimate your audience, of course.
and I
Yes.
really feel like a lot of the technical aspects of the various brands or the gear are not the reasons we chose that particular brand. A lot of times it's the ergonomics, the menu system, the workflow. All of those things really, I think, play a much more important role in decision making than camera specs, right? Because you can get good specs out of just about any brand, take great pictures, but actually using the camera, and that's one of the things that really drew me to Panasonic personally. Not at first, I bought one. I bought a little GX80, just for fun, because I wanted the lens, the 12 to 32 lens, because Panasonic has some excellent lenses. But then I discovered, what an awesome menu system that camera has. Is very intuitive. The touchscreen works great. And, I was able to do about 90% of everything I'd ever want to do with it within a few minutes of picking up the camera. And the menu system is totally different from Olympus. So I think that's a testament to how much or how good the menus are for me, right? They just clicked with my brain immediately. Whereas Olympus, honestly, yeah, I had to work hard to get good at it. I'm like a surgeon now with Olympus menus, but at first, yeah, it was a little intimidating, but I never had that feeling with Panasonic. So, and I always tell people with ambassadors or visionaries or whatever the title is that they give to other photographers like yourself. I always tell people these people are usually of the highest integrity. I mean, there's always one bad apple, right? Generally speaking, the ambassadors, the visionaries have very high integrity. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been chosen to begin with. And they have to maintain that integrity and honesty in their photography during that time that they have that status of ambassador or visionary, because they can lose it, and all the privileges that go with it, being that they loan you equipment to test out, and events and things like that. So whenever I see a review or a comparison or whatever video by an ambassador like yourself, I trust it more actually sometimes than an independent reviewer. These drive-by type channels that review every brand for a couple of weeks, throw it away, then do another one. Those kind of channels, I don't think are really have the same integrity as an ambassador, say, for Panasonic. So when I watch your video, I feel confident that you're being honest and telling me the truth, and you have to be to maintain that status. So anyhow, so everyone, definitely if Matti does a video on any kind of gear on Panasonic, you can definitely trust him. And yeah, of course he's biased because he likes the brand. But like I said, it's not for the technical reasons usually. It's usually for the other things. So that leads me to my next question. I'll get to you in a moment, Emily. That leads me to my next question for you, Matti, is, what drew you to Panasonic to begin with? Why did you start shooting with Panasonic? And what was your first Panasonic camera?
The first that I had, or the first that I used?
I'm sorry?
Do you mean the first camera I ever used?
No, the first Panasonic camera, and what kind of drew you to Panasonic to begin with?
My first Panasonic camera that I bought was the GF1. And that came out is 2010.
Yeah, early adopter.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the first camera I ever used was the G1, the very first mirrorless. And I think I used some of their point and shoot cameras in before that. But back then I was reviewing a lot of cameras, and I wanted to try the G1 as soon as it came out because the mirrorless system sounded really appealing, and I liked it right away, even though compared to today's cameras, it was not as smooth in every way, but still.
Right.
I shot on the G1 a couple of years ago, and it still felt surprisingly modern, considering it's more than 10 years old model. I like the menu system is really nice, and on the Micro Four Thirds side, I like the lens selection, and of course the whole Micro Four Thirds system is great because there's two manufacturers, and it's such a vast system. You can find almost anything there, whatever you want to have, and
okay.
I just like the customizability and the usability of Lumix cameras. I guess that's those are the main reasons.
Right. And like I said, you certainly didn't buy it for its technical specs back then, even, right? It was really just a small compact size.
Yeah, I think technically every camera is so good. All the cameras have been so great already many years. So you don't really have to buy any certain camera only for technical specifications to be able to do something. It's more like the usability and some other things that are more important, I think.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, thanks, Matti. So let me get your insight, Matti, on Panasonic Micro Four Thirds. What was like your first mirrorless camera, and what drew you to Panasonic?
What?
Me?
Yes, Emily.
Oh, sorry, he said Matti.
No, I said Emily.
I'm thinking now he's asking, this is something that I don't understand now.
So I have never not had a mirrorless camera. I don't think I started in the Sony line with the A9. It was when it used to have the Minolta mount, the A mount, and then I had the original Sony A7. And then I was working not in camera capacity, but I was working for Panasonic at the time, selling the televisions, and I was in John Lewis, and just across the TV aisle was the camera section, and every day I was staring at a Pen F, and I was just like, must not buy it, must not buy it, must not buy it. And then I sold my Sony stuff, and like every time it was quiet, I'd get the keys out and we'd just spend all day playing with the cameras. Sorry, ex-employers. And then I ended up selling my Sony stuff and getting the Pen F. I loved it, but my little brain just could not cope with the menus. And what is funny is on my channel, there's as many people that say they prefer the Olympus menus as Panasonic. So I just think it literally is a personal preference thing. What they said in John Lewis, the camera people, was because Panasonic made camcorders and stuff previous to cameras, that they kind of had a head start on the menu systems, whereas Olympus was making it from fresh, which is why it's a little bit convoluted, in my opinion. So I had the Pen F, and then someone came into store and, because it was in Liverpool, stole the stock lens off the Lumix the Lumix G7, and the manager was like, "You can have it for 200 quid." And I'm like, okay. And then I took both the Pen F, which was, oh God, it must have been 1,500 when it was new or more. And then this 200 quid Lumix camera on holiday with me. And every day I just found myself picking up the Lumix one. And it was like 1/10 of the price. And I was just like, okay, maybe I'm more wired towards Lumix. But the Pen F was gorgeous. But I just prefer the Lumix ones.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Pen F was a purely vanity decision for me, right? Because I had the
exactly. It's such a gorgeous camera.
Yeah, and I just loved it so much. I forced myself to learn the menus, pretty much. But had I picking up a Panasonic, I think I still would have just went with Olympus because of the Pen F. I'm just very vain that way. I feel like the camera has to inspire you too when you look at it, right? Like I used to sleep with that thing next to my bed, and just look at it when I wake up in the morning, and look at it before I go to bed every night, and then try and figure out something on the menu. But well, I'm surprised that people are kind of split on your channel about the menus.
Yeah, and a few people in the comments have said the same, that they don't like the Panasonic menus as much as Olympus. Though one person said because it's too easy. I like easy. I like a camera that does it all for me. There's no shame in that.
Yeah, they did a good job of I guess organizing the menu, coordinating, the little tabs and the way it's organized. I think just make it very intuitive. I mean, I still have to dig and find things sometimes, only because my brain has been wired for Olympus, and I'm like, I know I can do this on Panasonic, but where is it? Those are little things, right? That because I've been using Olympus so long. But go ahead.
Yes, I just want to say that the menu system on those S cameras is way better than on any of the Lumix Micro Four Thirds cameras. I think it's better sectioned or divided, and it's easier to find things.
Yes, we'll definitely talk about that soon.
All right, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. But you make a good point though. The S series does have more customization and can make it much more. It really improve your workflow when you use an S camera because of the customization that they have. I like the little Q menu. There's all kinds of things that are really, really nice about the S series. But that brings me to another question for Emily about, have you ever been approached by Panasonic to be an ambassador, or is that
I have not, and I think that's so rude. No, I think because everything that I post online is so varied. Like I could be shooting wildlife photography as a complete beginner one day, and then wedding photography. I feel like I'm not in a niche enough, or maybe even good enough to catch Panasonic's eye. But that's fine. I'm happy in my little corner of the internet, clicking away. That's fine by me.
It's their loss if they don't contact you. It's because unlike Matti, you and I, we have to buy all our stuff, right? Like Olympus never approached me.
They should do.
They should, right? No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding. But
can I just point out one thing?
Yeah.
Panasonic just don't hand out those cameras to their ambassadors. Sometimes they loan me something. I can borrow stuff, but they don't give me just some 5,000 euro things just like that. It's not happening. That's just a fact. So I don't get
give you
cameras for free. I just wanted to say it so that nobody gets the wrong impression.
To be fair, if people were lending me equipment, I'd end up buying it all. I would end up bankrupt.
Yeah.
So it's probably a good thing.
Is we don't get the same opportunity or early access like an ambassador would.
Yes.
We have to go through the usual due diligence that most other users do. If we want to make a decision about a lens, we have to watch your channel first, right? Which is great. Like I said, ambassadors and things I think have the highest integrity, and I trust you, Matti, when you talk about a lens, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But Emily, I think you have been doing some lens reviews, and I remember a long time ago you talked about, and I'm just wondering if this is still going on, right? Is you talked about some kind of loaner system where somebody would have a lens and you'd mail it to each other and everybody could try it.
It was so good. When we were small, little nerds on the internet, I think we had maybe 1,000 people in the Facebook group and a couple of thousand on the YouTube channel. We had a few smaller brands like Maker and Samyang and stuff that gave me a lens, and we just literally used to post it out to anyone. And if you just wanted to join in, you'd just go on the Facebook group and sort of put your name down. And we'd leave little things in the box for the next person. Like mine arrived with like loads of little stickers and stuff from all around the world. It was so much fun. I really want to start doing that again, but I just think now because it's got a little bit bigger, the chances of it was all on a trust system, and I just know I'll send it out and it'll be like, bye lens, sorry manufacturer.
I know.
But it was lovely. It was a great little time, definitely.
Yeah, and that's really what I love about your channel, Emily. Is you make doing photography so personal, and you share your own stories from your own life on your channel. And it just, and even, your life, your relationship with other people, but also your relationship with your camera. Like you did that tribute to your GX80.
Yeah, I do. Overly emotional about my camera equipment for sure.
I know. And that's really what I love about your channel is it's very sweet.
Oh, thank
but
you.
At the same time, it's been, educational too. Like for example, there's the Panasonic 100 to 400 lens has been out a long time, but you've only recently purchased this thing. So and you did a great little review on it, and it's a real life review. It's not like it has this many elements and it's this sharp and it's all that. It's like you just went out and took pictures and video with it. And really, that's what I think photography is about for most of us, most of our viewers, is really just enjoying the time out and taking pictures.
Yeah, I think there's so many channels that do the technical reviews better than I ever could. I would much rather just stick to my own enjoyment and just go out and just a bit more visceral and just see what I think about the lens. And I blooming love that lens. It's so good.
Yeah, and I've been tempted now that Olympus has one. I'll probably lean that way.
Yeah, you definitely should. I think if you've got the Olympus body, it definitely makes sense.
Yeah, but that focal range is very tempting. The 100 to 400 range. It's very flexible. Do you have that lens, Matti? Or I think you do, right?
Which one? Sorry, I'm replying to a.
I watched your review on it. I think so. Yes, I think it is. You've used the 100 to 400.
Yes, I do have. It's not my lens; it's on loan, but I do have access to that lens, and
excellent.
I like the lens, but it's way too long for what I do. I seldom use it. If I need a telephoto, I much prefer the 50 to 200. It's much more suited for what I do. But the 100 to 400 is a great lens for whatever it's good for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So let me sort of segue into some other cameras as well. First, I'll just start with something simple, Matti, because I really have been enjoying your retro type videos where you go out with a film camera. You had a Leica, you did a Contax T2, and you said you haven't shot film in like 20 years or something.
Yes, I had a really, really long break.
Yeah.
When I started using digital, I pretty much went like how do you say? I only used digital after that and no film, because for professional work, film seemed so slow and restrictive.
And
And
expensive.
yes, but well, sort of. But then again, when I was still using only film before, let's say 2004 or something, the film had a really, whenever I sold film, because I was charging for the film that I was using, there was a pretty good, is it overhead, or no, it's not overhead, the profit,
A
whatever I
margin.
got. Margin, yes, very good margin on the roll of film and the processing and all that, and it was a good business. The selling film was a good business because I was going through between, maybe $200 a month or something, and if I got, I don't know, can't remember anymore, but you can imagine if I got maybe 10 euros each roll or something.
I'm shooting film
Wow.
from now on. That sounds well good.
That's a good money, but unfortunately, it wouldn't work that way anymore. But back then, it was a good business also, selling all the film.
Hmm. Wow. So I think, like I said, I really like the videos you've been doing on photography as well. Uh, like I really like this one, is color necessary, and I thought you brought up a really interesting point. Like if if uh, if there was never black and white TV, but we started with color television, would anybody watch black and white? And if we started with color film, would anybody use black and white film? And I thought those were really, well, it really made me think. And whenever I see the images you're taking and things, you're a very purist type photographer. You like to take things as they were and seen at the time. So, those are some of the videos that I like. I mean, if I'm interested in a particular product that you have, I might watch a video on that from you. But usually the videos I really enjoy watching are your other ones that you do on photography and the retros. But tell me, Matti, what videos, I mean, do you ever make a video and feel like, this is going to be so great, people are going to love this video, and then there's hardly any views?
That's a very, very good question. And it always feels, of course, many times I make a video, then I think this is going to be, big, but
Mhm.
then it turns out to be a disappointment. And most of the time, the videos that I work really hard on, they are not a big success. And then sometimes I just, pick up the camera and talk something to the camera. And I
Mhm.
thought, this is the video that I never should have even made because it doesn't make any sense. And then that turns out to be like a big, like a, uh, like a big hit. And it's
Yeah.
and one of the difficult things, I talk about this a lot with Peter, my friend Peter Forsgaard, that on YouTube it's sometimes really difficult to predict how things turn out, because sometimes even I usually think that, okay, a lens, if I make a lens video, it's gonna do pretty well. But sometimes even a lens video doesn't get many views, and it's really, really difficult to plan anything because you can't never be sure what's gonna happen after you publish the video. But yeah, Yes,
Yeah.
I
How
forgot the
about you, Emily?
original question, but anyway, I hope
You
I hope
answered.
that answered.
You got it. But yeah, Emily, I mean, again, your channel, you have so many great videos, and I really enjoy the more personal ones that you do. Uh, it just makes it's just fun to watch. But what video did maybe that you made that you really like that you watch of your own, but then really didn't get many views that you might recommend to somebody?
I think it took me a very long time to add in any sort of vloggy kind of videos. Like I've done some behind the scenes of a wedding photographer, and I've done sort of like a year in review video. And I do love those just on a personal level, but I appreciate it might not be why most people go to my channel. So I don't mind if they get fewer views, but they take some time. They take some time. So yeah, it's nearly a year old now, but my 2019, my year in review for last year, I spent ages on, and I'm so proud of that video. I didn't do terrible. And then just to say, there's some where I am just literally talking to the camera and thinking, I don't know if this is going to be received well or if people are going to think I'm crazy. But the one I did recently called "I Will Never Be a Great Photographer," I think opened a lot of really good discussion, and I'm really glad I had the courage to upload that one in the end. It was good.
Yeah,
The topic is very catchy.
Mm.
Yeah.
So the title.
Yeah,
I mean.
yeah.
And that's I think you're a fantastic photographer, and I really like your style now that you've sort of come into. It's very muted, very coolish kind of colors, right? Tealish. And of course your composition and your subjects and everything are great, but I just kind of like that style or that look that you've kind of adopted.
Oh, thank you. It's been a long time coming. You can kind of see through my channel how it's evolved over the years.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I like what I'm doing now.
Yeah, it's they're really beautiful, and they're definitely, when I see them, I said that's an Emily Lowrey photo. You know,
That's what you want. That's what you want, isn't it?
right, right. And I think, yeah, your video about you'll never be a good photographer or great photographer, I can resonate with, and I think a lot of us can. Because just like when we look at your Instagram channel and then you look at mine, the pictures are all over the place. You know, you just kind of go from challenge to challenge to see if you can do it. And you know, like now you're into wildlife photography.
Yeah, starting again from scratch. And I think that's the thing with photography that I love so much. I think I said it in the video that there's always something new that you can learn. And it's always something that, you know, if you look back and you don't see critique in your own photographs, then you've probably not improved. That's, or maybe I'm just too harsh on myself, but that's what I believe. You always got to strive to be a little bit better every year.
Exactly. You know, it's a lifelong journey, right? Photography. But now, Matti, you've been shooting with Panasonic, you know, obviously for a long time, and when Panasonic came out with their S series cameras, I think it piqued my interest briefly, but then when I saw it was like a kilo, you know, like it was massive. I was like, well, maybe I really don't want to get back into full frame again. But you know, with the release of the S5, I feel like this is a very important camera for Panasonic. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on the S5, if it's a camera you're going to consider adding maybe permanently to your kit, or is it just you're fine with the S1 that you have now? I don't know. You tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the S5 as it relates to the entire Panasonic lineup, both full frame and micro four thirds.
Okay, obviously it's an important camera because many people thought that the S or S1R are too big, and they are big cameras, and but that was the choice Panasonic made when they, you know, came out with their first full frame cameras. And right now I don't have the S5. The camera that I had was on loan from Panasonic, and I unfortunately had to return it.
Right.
But, I'm considering it, but at the moment I'm really happy also with S1R and S1. I'm not so like the big size is not that bad at the moment. But
Right.
whenever this crazy pandemic situation kind of levels out, and maybe if I can travel again, then I definitely want to have something smaller and lighter than the S1 or S1R. And I had the S5 for about 4 weeks or so, and I really, really like the camera. Of course, it's such a small and nimble camera, and the feature set is really, really nice. But now that it's winter here in Finland, and not really winter, but the weather is not that warm, and I have to wear gloves when I'm shooting outside. I really also appreciate the big size of the S1 because with gloves, all the controls are so like clear and easy to operate even with gloves, which is, I'm not saying the S1 is not easy to operate, but I mean, sometimes the bigger camera is also the better camera in some situations.
Right.
But the S1 definitely is an important camera, and now that they started coming out also with these new compact lenses like the 85 f1.8 that was just introduced, what was it, week ago,
Okay.
and there's going to be 50, 35, and 24, I think, also all the same size. And after those lenses, it's going to be possible to, get a small, compact, full-frame kit with relatively fast prime lenses if you're in that kind of stuff. And I certainly would like to have all f1.8 primes and a couple of S5s maybe sometime. And like I said, if you travel, the S1 is just way, way too big, unless it's a professional job. But other than that,
I watched a couple of your videos on the S5 when you were comparing against, say, the G9. And you used a really good lens on the G9, the 25 millimeter f1.4 Leica, right? The version 2. And you compared it against, I think, even the kit lens on the, well, no, you put the 45 2.8 on the S5.
Yes,
but whether you're doing, yeah, the Sigma, whether it was the high-res shot mode or just general photography, you'd notice that it's just a tiny bit sharper than the G9 was with the S5, right? And the S1, because you had to swap to the S1 for some other shots. And I can concur with that. I have found that the Panasonic S5, because for those of you that don't know yet, I bought an S5 recently.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know, right? And I'm not interested so much in the photography side of it, but as a just for informational purposes for my viewers, I'm doing some testing with the camera for the photography side, and I can concur that it is just a hair sharper than my Olympus cameras. Even the EM1 Mark III with a 12 to 40 Pro, the kit lens on the S5. Just a little bit. You have to pixel peep down to about 200% to really start to see it, but it's just a hair sharper. So and most of us don't care about those little things, but that's what I wanted to kind of talk about is the S5 a little bit. I'll talk about some of the reasons that I bought one, but Emily, I know you bought into the full frame system also for some video work, right? Or tell me what you did on the Panasonic side in full frame. What you're working on?
I was an early adopter on the S1 and an early adopter on the S5, but I still use my Micro Four Thirds a lot as well. just
Right.
because I wanted to really up my packages for wedding photography. And if you find yourself in a tricky situation, like you find the ceremony's candlelit, or there's this venue in Manchester called Victoria Warehouse, which is literally a warehouse. It's in the darkness with just light, like tiny little lights. And I just thought, if I am sort of competing with the people in my area that are quite sort of premium, I just didn't want to do a disservice and compromise in those tricky situations. So having full frame for the really tricky moments has been really handy. But there's just as many times where the Micro Four Thirds will shine, like having your group shots in the faster burst mode, and just having one of each is just quite fun. So that was the main reason behind it, but I do tend to use them all pretty interchangeably.
Yeah, and you know, it's just simple math, right? I mean, when you push the cameras to their extremes, like in this warehouse or, you know, wherever in those kinds of situations, full frame's going to do better, you know, in those extreme conditions. And most of us, you know, I think for most people, though, most of our viewers anyway, you know, the important thing is about the composition, the subject, the photography side of things. And we buy into our systems for the other reasons, not for the technical reasons, but it could be for size and weight, you know, the compactness. Oh my God, you know, Micro Four Thirds is, I just can't bring myself, you know, I've had the S5 for about a month now, or about 3 weeks. And I can't bring myself to really take it out for photography, because even with the 20 to 60 lenses and the overall size and weight, it's still minimum 200-300 grams more weight and bulkier to carry around.
I totally agree. I did some photo walks as a photography tutor in August, and it didn't even cross my mind to take my S1. I was just like, yeah, I'll take my GH5 and my 25mm prime and my 45mm Olympus prime, and it was great. I did some behind the scenes video. I got some really nice images, particularly for landscape and street. I don't think you'd see much benefit unless you were doing it at night at 1.8 or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, even then, you know, you can bracket shots, you can, you know, use a tripod,
always ways.
right?
Yeah.
Bring a flash. You know, there's so many ways to kind of to really improve your photography without having to use a full frame camera, right? And go ahead, Matti.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the because I have two systems, Micro Four Thirds and full frame, like Emily, and now you too, Rob. And I think the benefits are more obvious on real assignments for clients, because there are because as a professional, I have to be able to do what my client wants me to do. And sometimes the job that just requires certain type of gear, and I certainly don't want to tell my client that, sorry, I only work with small and light cameras. That's not a good explanation or a good excuse. So I got to be prepared for all kinds of situations. And since I'm getting paid, it makes sense for me to deliver the best possible results that I can get, technically the best results that I can do. So, but if I'm shooting for myself, then, or anyone who's just taking, or it's not just taking pictures for yourself, but if you are taking pictures for yourself, then only you are your client as well, and you can decide what kind of technical quality and what kind of quality in general you want to have or expect. And then the whole thing changes, and you don't necessarily need two systems or a bigger sensor or anything. Just if it's for your own pleasure, then it's totally, because taking pictures for a client, it's a different world compared to being a hobbyist and taking pictures for your own pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I have certain lenses I wouldn't have if I didn't shoot professionally, because I just need them for that work. It's the like a 7 to 14, you know, probably wouldn't buy a lens like that for myself, you know. But professionally, I need it because I do architecture. I need wide angle. And I think, like you know, the S5 and Emily for that matter, the S5 really, you know, if you want to, because it's very competitive, right? I got the S5 primarily for video work, and you know, it definitely made a big improvement on the low light areas, recovering the shadows. The highlights were about the same for me in video, but when I can underexpose the shot, you know, another stop over micro four thirds, and then retain that shadow detail, I can deliver a much better product to the client. And when it's very competitive, you know, you have to be able to set yourself apart in some way. And I think the S5, the reason I bought it was to kind of give me that edge over my competition, because they're using Canon full frames and other types, and a lot of them actually are using cell phones to record video for property. They charge less, but then I'm like, well, I can charge the same as they charge for their cell phone, but use an S5. So, you know, and I think that's like Matti, what you said is really purely for business, and it's very different when you're doing jobs that you have the right tool, you know, for the job. You know, and I, like Emily was saying, same thing. It's about having the right tool, you know, for the job. And if you're going to be shooting in low light all the time, you know, why limit yourself to one camera, right? Get a camera that can handle those kinds of situations.
And it's the stress of it as well, because micro four thirds can do brilliantly in low light. But if you're in the middle of a wedding where it's sort of a fast-paced thing, it's one more thing you have to think about. It's like, can I get away with going down to 60th of a second and hope that the IBIS saves me? Whereas with full frame, it's like, there you go, it's fine, it's done.
Yeah, it's fine. You hope, right? Your odds are better anyway. And yeah, in event photography, you know, and I've always told people from the beginning, it's like, event photography, you know, you have to be on the move, and you can't predict what the lighting situation is going to be like. So you want to be able to get the shot and not have to, you know, have a little more confidence that you'll be able to recover that shot. You know, with full frame anyway. But you know, that, like I said, for photography, it didn't interest me too much. Although it's a very capable camera, it has some really nice features that I think they've implemented better than Olympus in many ways. I don't know about Panasonic's other cameras like the G9, but the S5 definitely, I really like the ergonomics of it. You know, a couple little niggles here and there, but they, you know, Matti, your video on best settings videos that you did for the G9, a lot of that applies to the S5. And those were excellent tips that I didn't even think about, you know, like the S5 has a little wheel on the back here, you know, you assign this to ISO, you know.
Yes.
I'm like, God, that makes so much sense, you know. I was using it just to kind of get around the menus, but then when I watched your video, I was like, oh my God. So definitely, if you guys are using Panasonic and you haven't seen his best settings videos, you should definitely check those out. There's a lot of, even me, a veteran Olympus user, you know, I thought I'd be able to just program this the way I wanted, you know, and good to go. But I still learned a couple of little tricks from Matti. I was surprised. I shouldn't say I was surprised, but I was happily surprised to learn a few new tricks with the Panasonics. And like I said, I'll kind of go into a little more detail, my view on the Panasonics at another time. But I guess at this point, I wanted to open up the chat section. I think maybe you guys have been following it better than I have.
We've got some good questions here. What is Matti's typical job kit? And then same for Emily.
Okay. What for work?
Like yeah, for work. Like what would you use for work primarily?
Okay, you go first, Emily.
At the moment for weddings, I'm using the S1 with the F4 stock. I really do need to get the 2.8. And this chunky this 85mm 1.4 Sigma. That's the S5. Look how stupid it makes it look.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. So yeah, it's not really great for the weight benefit. But that 1.4 is just stunning for portraiture. It's so good. And then on Micro Four Thirds, my trusty 25mm 1.4 Leica lens. It's my fave.
Okay. How about you, Matti? I just figured out how to pop up the questions.
That's so cool. You're so fancy at this.
It really depends on what I'm going to do. For portraits, many portraits, I use Micro Four Thirds gear because corporate portraits seldom gets blown out really big, and despite of what I just said before, I really prefer small and light gear if it's only possible to use them. So I would probably, if I'm taking portraits, I'll take the G9 and the Leica 42.5mm f1.2 lens. And,
that's a good lens. I've only ever rented that once. It's so good though. I really need to buy that one. It's so good.
It's a really nice lens. And then probably the 50-200 as well, because that's sometimes when you're doing corporate portraits, you don't have much choice with a background, and if you want to work with smaller background, longer lens works better because you need less background. So sometimes I take the longer zoom as well. And but if I'm doing some like industrial interior shots, then I'll take my S1R with the 24-105 f4 lens, because especially with those big interiors with lots of detail, I like to use the high resolution camera just to make sure I'll get all the detail. And despite of what some people said in the comments some time ago, that no client will notice any difference, but it's not necessarily that. It's also the convenience factor when I'm working, that I can be sure that I get the shot that the client wants. And sometimes I can't be sure what the client wants to do with the picture. If they want to blow it out really big, then I have to be sure that they can do that as well. So it's not always the question whether the client realizes which camera I used. It's more like that I feel comfortable when I'm taking the shot. And like Emily just said, you never know, because I can't know where I'm going to many times. And if I need to shoot at ISO 6400, I have to know that I don't have to worry about that, because whenever you are on assignment, there are so many other things that you have to think about all the time. You don't want to be thinking about your camera gear. You have to be able to think all these other things, the lighting, and you have to deal with the people all the time. You're the client, and if you're taking pictures of people, you have to deal with the people and all that. And it's only those who have done it, they know what I'm talking about. It's really hard to describe the whole thing that's going on.
Know your gear, right? Know your gear, so you don't have to think about it. It's automatic.
Yeah.
And you focus on the job.
Yes, exactly.
Definitely. Okay, this one's for Emily. It's kind of a weird question, but
that's a good question. So I do this little dance whenever I want to buy a piece of equipment that I probably shouldn't. It's like, what can I get out of it? And with the 100 to 400, I was thinking, well, I can go on wildlife trips with my friends. Maybe I could do some lunar photography. And it was just one of the things that I sort of flirted with just to sort of justify the price of the lens. I've tried it a few times and I'm really, really enjoying it, but we've just not had many clear nights at the appropriate time of the month at this time around here. So hopefully next year I'll be able to do a little bit more. But yeah, I'm getting better, and I'm getting better at processing it as well. It's a fun sort of part of photography. It's a brand new thing to me as well.
Yeah, and you know, it's that's the thing with astrophotography, like moon shots. It's like you have so many conditions. You know, it has to be a clear night, moon has to be out. You know, it has to be in line with your schedule. On top of that, and then usually you have to find a place that has, you know, with the moon shots not so much, but astro you have to find a place that has low light pollution and so many different things.
And an interesting foreground as well with astrophotography, because you can have the
Yeah,
best conditions for the sky, but if you don't have foreground interest in the composition, it's just photographs of the stars, which is fine, but I'd rather have a nicer
right.
subject as well. Yeah.
Okay, Maddie, here's one for you. Does the S5 support a battery grip?
I think it does. I think there is a battery grip for that, but now I have to say I'm not sure anymore, but I think it does. Maybe Emily knows better.
I've seen on the Facebook groups there is a third-party one that's making the rounds that everyone seems to like. I just think if you buy the S5 for it being so small, I wouldn't put a battery grip on it personally. Like, you're just making it much bigger, but each to their own.
Yes,
Right.
I don't like battery grips. I almost never have used them in the past, and not now.
Okay, I mean, one way to tell is if there's any pins down here. So there's a billion pins right here. So I assume there's.
I'm pretty sure that there is a battery grip that they introduced at the same time with the camera, but I can't remember it now. Maybe if you go to Panasonic's website, maybe that's the info is there. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I mean, I like. Well, I'll talk about this camera later, but I like the. There's a lot of little things that Panasonic really did put some thought into the S5, and I like the larger capacity battery. But that, you know, that was a very strategic choice to use a battery that's backwards compatible. I feel like, and this was a question, I can't find it now, about generally what do you think, and this is for Matti again, is the Panasonic's commitment, I guess, basically to Micro Four Thirds, because I feel like, for me personally, when I saw the S5 and it comes with Vlog, S-Vlog built in already, you don't have to buy it separately like you've had to on other cameras. I felt like this is like the replacement for the GH5, and it's going to bring a lot of people in that were using the GH5 to the S line. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? I guess you've had meetings on this or conversations.
I still think Panasonic will come out with another Micro Four Thirds camera, or several of them in the future, and I still use the GH5S for my YouTube videos because I really like the camera, and the workflow is so I know the camera so well. It's so easy for me to just take it out and make the video, and the image quality is still very good. But I think they're gonna come out with new Micro Four Thirds gear, definitely. And but I think one of the problems with Micro Four Thirds is that there are, as far as I know and what I read online, that there are no new sensors available, proper sensors, or maybe there is now. There was some rumor about that, but I think that's one of the problems, because I think it doesn't make much sense now to bring out another camera with the same or similar sensor that we already have. I think we all want, if there is a new Micro Four Thirds camera, we all want to see a new sensor as well. I think so.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Micro Four Thirds will always have a place, you know, but they are waiting for a new sensor, basically, and integrating that or designing the camera around that sensor. I think that's really what Panasonic's waiting for. But Emily, you're probably the last person to ask on a subject like this, like what I have here on the screen about expanding, because you're more about just the photography and having fun. But
yeah, just from a consumer point of view, I just think pretty much every other camera brand does have the APS-C offering and the full frame. So I've always considered Panasonic's lineup to be split down the middle of full frame and micro four thirds like everybody else's. And I think, even if it stopped tomorrow, there's such a huge community around micro four thirds. You can always buy secondhand. There's always people that are interested in it. I just think it'd be stupid for them to stop creating cameras down this lane, in my opinion.
Yeah, like I said, micro four thirds for life for me. Definitely. Just because of the size, the weight, the lens selection. That even if they don't ever make another camera, there's enough out there for me for the rest of my life, really, to use. I mean, I'm still buying cameras from like 10 years ago that work great and I enjoy, and and to me that's what photography is, just going out and enjoying, like you, Emily. And I don't like to speculate too much on what the future is of a particular company. It's like, if they have something right now that I really like and will enjoy, and there's room to grow, that's all that matters, really.
Yes, micro four thirds is a really, really good system, and because it's such a big and mature system, it's great.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say though, well, let me put a question up for you, Matti, real quick. Have you used the GX9 enough to say that the image quality is close enough, if not the same, to the G9?
I think I answered the same question, the similar question to somebody just a couple of days ago on my channel, in the comments. I think the image quality on all micro four thirds, all the 20 megapixel micro four thirds cameras, it's very, very similar. There's no distinct differences, and I'd say the image quality on the GX9 is about the same as on the G9 or G90 or whatever. The differences are more in the camera features and usability and all that. There's no big difference in the image quality.
Yeah, they're both 20 megapixel, you said, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's probably... So. Huh?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, I mean, they're the same. I mean, I think the sensors, even though they have different, because I dug into it one day, the sensors, this 20 megapixel sensor has been recycled between Panasonic and Olympus. They have different slightly model numbers from Sony, but that has more to do with the layering on top of the sensor itself. But the core of the sensor is pretty much the same, the silicon and the wiring and everything. But they just put slightly different, like the focusing system might be a little different, that gets layered on top. And that's really where we are kind of stuck right now with micro four thirds. They once they come out with a new sensor, though, I'm sure we'll start seeing a whole nother generation of cameras in the micro four thirds world. But even right now, things are excellent. I'm so happy with my M1 Mark III and all of my, especially my pen app. It's still like, if you could only pick one camera for your, not for work, because work is different, you get the tool for the job, but like, what would be your one camera and one lens that you would get, Matti?
Oh, that is a very tricky question right now, but when I was using the S5 with the tiny Sigma 45mm lens, that is a very, very nice combination indeed. And
is that the one that you get free? Because I think I was eligible for the free lens, the 2.8.
Yes,
Is it good? I'm excited to get it.
It's a very good lens. I reviewed it over a year ago when it was new, the lens, and it's a really, really nice lens, and it's a perfect pair with the S5 because they both are kind of small. So I'd be very tempted to choose that as my only camera and lens right now. And I'm sorry about the fact that it's a full frame camera, but it's just such a sweet combination at the moment. And it's not any bigger than, for example, the G9 with the Leica 25mm f1.4. They're about the same size. So
Okay. Well, what's your desert island camera, Emily?
This is a weird choice because it's a really affordable one, but I just love my GX80/GX85. I just think for the price of it and the size of it, and because it's stabilized, you get great video out of it. It's one of those cameras that makes me really excited about photography again because it offers so much at such a relatively small price point. In terms of lenses, I don't know whether I'd go prime or just keep the stock lens because the stock lens is pretty good.
Yeah,
I just wish it had a proper flippy screen. That's the only thing I wish.
Oh,
but
really?
Aside from that, I love it.
Even for photography, you prefer the flip out instead of tilt?
I do.
Really?
Though there is a place for both. I just think because if you have your screen like that, oh god, I'm mirrored. If you have your screen like that, it's the same as having it flip down, isn't it? So with the flippy screen, you get both.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, I mean I get it. I mean ultimately you can get more angles with a fully articulated screen. Especially if you do portrait work, you can tilt it this way. And
I write people's names, brides and grooms, behind the screen, which I think is a top hack.
Oh my god.
that's a neat trick.
Yeah, I'm terrible with names sometimes, so I'm just like, okay, let's go, Beth and James, let's do it.
Okay. Good, great tip. Great tip. For me, it's simply Pen F with the 17mm.
I do like 17mm.
Yeah, this guy right here.
Yeah.
This would be my one and only, and it has the fully articulating. I prefer tilt for photography, but yeah.
It's such a beautiful camera. Oh, you're making me want to look on eBay for a bargain.
There's no bargains. This thing is still freaking expensive.
600-ish? Is it still going around that?
Yeah, 600, $700 if you want one in good condition.
I used to love using the presets on the front of that and having that really nice monochrome preset. It was so nice to just wander around and shoot with that.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're making me want to buy one again. Stop it.
Just get one instead of a lens. Just buy that. What's this about, Emily? Some Grand Canyon pictures.
Oh, Emily's pictures from the Grand Canyon. I've took a few from there. I did take the Pen F with me and the G7, and I used the Olympus 9-18 to get everything in. But
okay. And then this good question for Matti, because you had a great video on adapting vintage lenses. You adapted some vintage lenses on your cameras.
Here's one. And there's a video coming up this following Tuesday. I have 3 Leica vintage lenses. Where is it here?
Ooh, wow. Some Leica lenses. Okay.
Yes,
I love the 100mm FD lens, the 2.8, and I've got the adapter for the S5 as well now, so I can use it on Micro Four Thirds and full frame.
Yes,
it's beautiful.
Great. That's what I did as well. I tried those on both the Micro Four Thirds and full frame. Anyway, about this question, they work. They work really well if the lens is, a good lens. It depends on the lens, but the only downside, I think, at least in my opinion, is that you get the 2x crop. So it's really, really almost impossible to find anything else than telephoto lenses. If you want like a standard lens, 25mm lens on your Micro Four Thirds camera, there are no. Well, the selection is very limited if you're looking at the vintage lenses, because back in the day there were no 17mm lenses or 15mm lenses that would be compact and affordable, or fast aperture, or anything like that. So if you're happy with more with the telephoto side of the lenses, then definitely they are worth it. And I got really nice results on these 3 Leica lenses on my Lumix G9 when I was shooting. But because I'm not in general photography, I would prefer a standard lens or slightly shorter, like a 50 or 35. Then I think for me, it's a big downside that on Micro Four Thirds, I can't have a standard vintage lens, like a 25mm vintage lens. I know there are some 24mm lenses, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, they're expensive too.
Yes.
If you can find a good wide-angle lens that's vintage, they're not cheap.
Yes, exactly. But some of the 50mm lenses, for example, they are really, really cheap and excellent value for money.
Yes, definitely. I have the Olympus and the Nikon 50mm f1.8s. They're like $30,
Yes.
Now the 24mm Olympus I have, yeah, 200.
Exactly. And could be even more if it's a fast 24. Like something like Nikkor 24 f2. I think they go for much more than 200, maybe 400 or so, 500. I don't know.
Yeah, so generally speaking, I mean, and I would say the only other thing would be is to avoid zoom lenses from vintage zooms. None of them are very good. If they are any good, they're going to be expensive, and it's not worth it. There's some very rare exceptions. The Vivitar Series 1 had some very good zooms, but they're expensive.
My first zoom lens was the Vivitar 72 210 S1 series.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Great lenses, but yeah, they're hard to find and they're generally expensive if they're good. So yeah, just stick to the 50mm primes to start with, and then maybe the 100mm range and the 135s. Those are all very good and very cheap, generally speaking.
Yeah, especially 135s can be really, really affordable.
Yeah,
because that's not a popular focal length, but it still makes great pictures, of course.
yeah, and I took mine out yesterday, actually, my 135, and shot that on the S5. It was kind of nice adapting my old vintage full frame glass back on a full frame camera. Definitely was fun, and it's amazingly sharp lens. Okay, there's one here from Lauren for Emily.
Have I tried the 12-60? I've not owned that one personally, but I made my dad buy a Lumix G80, which I believe is the stock lens for that one. Am I right in saying that? And the photographs he's got out of that stock lens is superb. I think it would look quite big on the GX85, if that's the one I'm thinking of, but it is probably a better quality stock lens than the one you get on the GX85, the little pancake lens.
Okay.
The 45mm is gorgeous. I use that all the time.
Yeah, the Olympus one?
Yeah. And it's so tiny as well. It's great.
Yeah, it's a great lens. And then Serge is a regular viewer, but he just wanted to throw you a compliment in there about your.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really want to get the Lauer 7. The 7.5mm, is it? The one that isn't a fisheye, but the 7 Artisans is such a good affordable lens if you want to try some astrophotography on Micro Four Thirds.
Okay, yeah, I've never heard bad things really about the 7 Artisans lens. At almost any price, they're all very, very affordable, and it's really hard to make an argument for a more expensive lens when you can buy 7 Artisans. So.
Oh, it was the stock lens on the 85. In that case, yes, it's a really high quality lens, and the photographs that my dad's been getting with the G80 or G85 is brilliant. And I'm so glad I forced him over to the Micro Four Thirds life so that we can swap lenses and stuff when we go on holiday together.
Yeah. The 12 to 60. It's not a focal range. I really like the 20 to 60 focal range on this S5. This is really, really perfect. I may not have to buy another lens for this thing ever, you know?
I bought mine body only, and I'm really regretting it because it was only about 300 more to get the stock lens with it. I wish I had. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, professionally speaking, that 20 millimeter wide is perfect for my video work. If it came in like a 24 to 70, I would have a little bit of it's a little bit too tight for what I do. And for vlogging and everything else, it's really good. It gives you a nice wide field of view. I can't believe no one else has a lens like that focal range, you know, in full frame anyway. Yeah. Now Micro Four Thirds, we have the 9-18. We got lots of lenses in that cover that range, even more so. You know, the 8 Panasonic has a
7 to 14, is it?
7 to 14. Yes. Yep. The F4, very cheap, affordable, lightweight. You know, great lenses. And that, again, that's why, you know, Micro Four Thirds for life for me, because there's so many great lenses at great prices, and they're small. You know, I just love it. But let me see. Tell me, Emily, about because you had a little bit of a gap in your YouTube channel where you had been, I don't know, 2-3 months, and we didn't see anything from you. And you gave a short little blurb about that you were working on videos or tutorials or something. Tell us a little bit more about what you're offering now. And I did put links down below, but I haven't really checked them out.
Yeah, so obviously with the way things are at the moment, weddings did not happen this year. So I've been really fortunate to become a photography tutor at a company in the UK called iPhotography. And I'm also doing photo walks, one-to-one tuition, and doing lots of course creation as well. We did the wildlife course, which is what made me buy that beautiful 100 to 400 mil lens. I've done a full course on Lightroom, a full course on Luminar, which is also on my website if anyone wants to check that out, microfournerds.com. And at the moment, I'm halfway through editing a wedding masterclass course with that company. So it's lots and lots and lots of video editing. So unfortunately, at the end of the day, when I've been editing for like 8 hours, the last thing I want to do is make a YouTube video, and it's such a pain. But I'm just so fortunate to be able to be doing what I love still throughout. Yeah. So I really can't complain.
Wow, that's awesome, and I guarantee, you know, it'll be a lot of fun to watch her tutorials and stuff, because you know it's like a friend helping you learn Lightroom or Luminar. You know, I can just kind of picture that from Emily.
Yeah, it's very informal. We don't like to, you know, just explain things as they are, as simply as possible.
Yeah, you know, Matti, I wanted to kind of go back to the S5 just for one more thing, or not the S5, but the S series in general. It seems like because this is important to me, right? It seems like the flash systems are compatible from Micro Four Thirds to the S series. Mm-hmm. The triggers, all the flashes. So, you know, what flash systems, you know, do you use on your cameras, like triggers, or does it matter for you?
I don't have any of those automatic TTL flashes, because if I was doing more event photography, then I would probably have at least one like a TTL flash to use as a field flash in some situations. But all my flash work is portraits or something similar, and I use full manual flashes or strobes. So no particular preferences there. I don't own any studio type of strobes at the moment. And I sometimes use those. I have 4 of those very affordable old Yongnuo flashes, and I use them a lot for portraits, because for portraits you don't need a lot of power output from your flash, and they are easy to carry in my camera bag, 4 of them, and if it's just like a headshot, they work really well. But if it's something, I'm kicking my light here, if it's something bigger, I'll rent or borrow my friend's lights. That's the
Okay.
flash.
Well, and I'll ask Emily. Let me ask you the same question. You know, what do you do for strobes or flashes or on your cameras?
So I have two setups. I have the Yongnuos. They're very cheap and dead easy to just jump in and get used to. And because I shoot portraits fully manual anyway, I don't need them to be fast. I don't need them to have TTL. So it's perfect and very portable. So I have 2 of those for sort of off-camera flash portraiture. And then I also have a Godox AD300 Pro, I want to call it. Like that.
Yeah.
That is like gorgeous.
Yeah.
I'd like to maybe get another one in the Godox range so that I have 2 to trigger at the same time, because I've just sort of got the key light at the moment. But that is so good. And the high-speed sync is really handy for certain types of parts in a wedding, like the first dance and stuff, and confetti and things. Yeah, it's really good.
Right. Wow. Okay. It was, for me, it was one of the it wasn't like one of the main reasons I got the S5, but it was definitely a bonus for me being able to use my Olympus radio triggers and flashes with the S5, full TTL and everything. So I didn't have to get a whole new flash system with this camera. I can use what I have been using with my Olympus. And that's something I'm not sure a lot of people know, is that the flash systems are compatible between Panasonic and Olympus.
Yes.
So that was really, and the fact that the S series is also compatible, it's just one less thing I have to worry about or buy. If I want to use flash with my S5, I can just grab anything I used on my Olympus and put it on there. So that was really a nice bonus, and almost kind of sealed the deal, right? You look for certain things, they have to check these boxes, but then they throw in this one more thing. Oh, by the way, all your flash gear is going to work with this too. And it's like, man, that's a whole nother, because flashes can get expensive.
It's
like
expensive.
lenses.
Yeah. It came in so handy when I was filming the wedding course, because I had the S1, the S5, the GH5, and the GX85. And at any one time, the cameras were doubling up as the angles that I was filming, and also the camera I had in my hand to demonstrate. So it was so handy having the flash triggers interchangeable. So it really didn't matter which cameras I was filming with and which ones I was shooting with.
Yeah. And then this is a question. I don't know if you've ever tried this, either of you, but
Do you know, I've never used the high res mode at all, and I probably should do something about that.
At all.
All.
That'll be your next project, like your moon photography. Now it's high res photography. How about you, Matti?
I've used it, but only for testing purposes. I just don't find many situations where I really need to do it. And then I have the S1R that gives me 47 megapixels in one click in any situation. So I just use that if I need higher, more megapixels. But I don't think, well, I'd say that just experiment with the handheld high-res shot for portraits and see what comes out. It's not recommended if you want something traditional, but who knows, maybe something artistic will turn out if you try it. I've never tried it for portraits, or I've tried to take handheld high-res shots, but Panasonic really doesn't claim it's possible. But when I was testing the S5, for example, I got some pretty decent results, but nothing really perfect. But I think if you have a steady hand, you may be able to get a handheld high-res shot.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't. Panasonic doesn't claim it's possible.
Right, and I can tell you that, and I'm going to put another question up for you guys to just preview. But oh dang, I clicked the wrong one. Hold on. Well, let me. Oh, here it is. Okay, you can preview this question, but two other photographers, Robin Wong and Joe Edelman. Joe Edelman's big time photographer, portrait photographer, and he's used high-res shot mode for portraits before without really any issues. Not handheld, but I think he was on a tripod and the model just froze right for the scene, and you pop a flash and that helps freeze some of the motion as well. So it is possible to get great results, but I think you have to practice and develop. Like Matti's saying, he's practicing now. You have to develop your skill set for that particular type of photography, because it's very, very specific. High-res shot portrait, So I think it can be done. I've seen great results, and then also, but there's a counterpointing view like Robin Wong, who wants to see high-res shot mode of somebody's face, right? Every little pore, So I think, personally, I don't think there's a need for high-res shot mode for portrait. I'm kind of with Robin Wong on that. But if you have professional makeup artists and perfect models and perfect lighting and a very high skill set, yeah, you could do portrait high-res shot mode. But just understand, it's, for me, photography's always been about, don't make it hard, Like, why do people try to light a match on the beach? It's like photography's the same thing, It's like, just don't make it hard, take the path of least resistance and get the best results you can. And then if you want to experiment with other things, that's great. But anyhow, I'm kind of with Robin Wong on that, where you really don't need a high-res shot mode. But okay, so this question here. Oh,
one more thing. Besides, you can make really big prints, for example, from the 20 megapixel file, A2 size easily, and it's pretty big portrait already if it's like a face shot. So I also think there's not much need for a high-res portrait shot, unless you have a certain type of, I don't know, project or something where you, I don't know. But
okay. Yeah. Let me ask you, Emily, you ever do black and white? Like, I don't think I recall ever seeing black and white photos from you.
I like black and white for weddings. I think it's like a timeless kind of thing, and also really helpful if you have artificial light that isn't pleasing. It hides a multitude of sins. And I do like black and white for street photography as well, particularly when I was using the Pen F. I used to just use it shooting in RAW, so I could always change it afterwards, but using the monochrome preset. And I like projects like this, shooting in 1:1 ratio, limiting yourself to black and white, and thinking about contrast and textures rather than colors. And I think it's limiting your options sometimes can make you more creative. So I think that's a really cool sounding project.
Okay. And what do you think about the choice of lenses there? The 20, the 14, the 140, and the 45 f1.4. I didn't know there was one of those.
Is that the 1.8 maybe? The
1.4 to 1.2.
Yeah, that's a typo.
Right. What do you think, Matti, of this question? What would you share?
So I'm not sure what to say. I mean,
Depends on the subject, I guess, doesn't it?
Yes. I don't know. I think if you have a project, keep it as simple as possible when it comes to the gear. As few lenses as possible and as few cameras as possible, then it's going to turn out better that way. That's my opinion.
Yeah, because you have basically, Jim, you got 3 lenses there, a 20 prime, a 45 prime, and a 14-140. These are all very different lenses for different purposes. I think you can detach that part of this project, detach those lenses from the project, and just think about the project and pick one lens. You know, the 1:1 ratio just kind of harkens back to the medium format 6x6 film, right? I think was the most common format for square.
Hasselblad.
Yeah. So for me personally, I think the 20 millimeter would be my first pick for that size, that format, square format, because then you can get plenty of environment in the shot. Because square, when you're used to shooting wide, you know, the standard, 4x6 type format, 1:1 feels very restricting. So using a wider lens, I think, will sort of alleviate that, is just how I feel. And a 45 is going to be very tight. That's, and the 14-140, that's everything. But I think for a project, you really want to try and stick to a prime.
I shall check out this project on your Instagram as well. I want to see some of these examples.
Yeah, definitely. And then let me share one more question before I need to wrap it up here soon. This is from Walter Rowe. And I'll just read it out loud. Do either Matti or Emily have memorable jobs that stand out? Either they learned something value, or the job was particularly rewarding, or the client was really challenging or lovely to work with. So what was your favorite job, basically?
Oh man, I've done so many of them. Emily, do you have one right away?
I do, but it's one I've talked about already, but it really was awesome. This wildlife course that I was the camera operator for, so it wasn't me in front of the camera. I was learning as I was filming. Rachel Sinclair is the wildlife photographer, and she spends half a year in Kenya, and she's just a phenomenal photographer. And just listening to her impart all of the knowledge, and me realizing that there's a whole arena of photography I know absolutely nothing about, was incredibly inspiring to me, and ended up buying me my 100-400, and we're still friends. We go out and do like little wildlife shoots every month. The most recent video on my channel was shooting the deer rutting recently, and we're hoping to do a little bit more and keep it up, so I'll do lots more vlogs with that.
Yeah, you always make fun vlogs. I really enjoyed it. How about you, Matti? What do you have, like, just anything that stands out?
Okay, let me remind you that I've done professional jobs since 1983, so there are quite a few of them. But I can tell you about one job that I really enjoyed. This happened around maybe 2008 or so. We're covering, we're making a story of a one particular car racetrack in Sweden, and we went there with the Finnish Formula 2 team or something, and we're supposed to, take a few pictures on the track and just tell how the track is. This was for a car magazine, and at the track there, because in my past life, I was a car nut. I had several cars, and I worked on them. And I still like cars, but now I only have one modest family car to get around because I live in a city right now. But anyway, and at the track there, they had 2 Corvettes as like a trainer or whatever, cars that they use to train people to drive around the track. And after the shoot, I and the guy who wrote the story, we had a chance to drive those Corvettes around the track, and that was I've done that before, but that was a very, very nice experience. I had the track all by myself. A proper high quality racetrack all by myself, and I had a Corvette Z6 under my butt, and and I got to make a few laps all by myself, and I had a proper fun, and
Man.
and even yes, and that was one of the really nice experiences, and I have many other similar experiences where I got to see or experience something that would never be possible if I was just a normal person and not a photographer.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty nice, man. Being able to, oh my God.
Yeah,
I would love to go on a track one day. I'd probably die that day too, but I'd go out in flames.
Yeah, that was a huge fun. Really, really big fun.
That's great. Okay, so just a couple quickies and then I'll wrap it up here. Tamron Micro Four Third lenses. I think there's one, but I don't know. Have you guys ever used any Tamrons?
I have a video on that only Tamron. There is. It's 14 to 140 or 150, something like that. And it's a pretty neat lens. The only downside is that for some reason it does not support the in-camera corrections. So you have to manually correct all the distortions and whatever.
Oh, okay.
And, it might be a big deal. It might not be a big deal for you, but that's something to be aware of. I was really surprised that it didn't support the in-camera corrections, or the camera does not support the lens or whatever. But anyway, the corrections just don't happen automatically.
Right. I don't know where the corrections are. If the software to correct the lens issues are in the camera, or is it in the lens and the lens tells the camera?
I'm not sure how it works.
Yeah, it seems like it's in the camera, because whenever you get firmware updates, the firmware updates are for lenses, right? A lot of times.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But it'd be better if the lens could tell the camera, this is how you correct, all my problems. Right. And then there was a question about the this is another easy one. Excuse me. But about adapting lenses. So I guess there's a couple different kinds. Maybe you can speak to, Emily. What adapters do you use to adapt, the vintage or any 35 millimeter lenses to your Micro Four Thirds?
The only ones that I've invested in are the Canon FDs, and I do have some weird Voltrox, maybe branded one. I found it on eBay, like a speed booster. I've got the 24 mil, the 50 mil. Yes, exactly that. Yes. Yay! And I do have the little Pentax 110 lenses as well, which are just adorable.
Okay. What do you use, Matti?
Oh, this particular one, this is not mine. This is on loan from camerastore.com. It says K and F concept on the adapter, and it feels like a high quality adapter. This is for Micro Four Thirds and Leica R lenses, but I suppose they have the adapters for all kinds of lenses, not only Leica.
Yeah, generally speaking, any mirrorless camera, you can find an adapter to adapt the old DSLR type lenses. And there's two kinds of adapters. There's smart adapters, there's dumb adapters, and then there's focal reducer type adapters, right? So the dumb adapters just have no lens in them. They basically just add space between the sensor and the lens, so that you can get minimum, maximum, infinity focus. Yeah, exactly. And as far as branding goes, that the K&Fs are very good. The other products I bought from K&F, I should say, are very good. I usually buy the cheapest one I can find, like Photo-C or Photodiox. You just have to tighten the screws sometimes. They get a little loose when you buy cheap ones, but there are very expensive ones. So it just depends on your tolerance for how much you want to spend on an adapter. The more you spend, generally, you get what you pay for. So that leads to the focal reducer type, the speed booster type adapters that will take the full frame lens and reduce it by one stop. So it'll give you one stop extra light, and it'll also reduce the image circle down so that the lens is closer to what it was when it was on the full frame. So the speed boosters, you would multiply your focal length generally by 0.71 or 0.72. So like a 50 millimeter full frame lens would act like a 35 millimeter lens on your camera. And then you double it back to be 7. Anyway, those are generally down to $200 or less. And then there's these smart adapters now that can also autofocus more modern 35 millimeter lenses. So look for those 3 kinds and see what's within your tolerance for budget. I only have experience with the dumb adapters. You know, I like spending $15, $20 on an adapter and using it.
I like the focal reducers just because I feel like they make the lenses a little bit more usable, you know, because you don't have to deal with double the focal length. It gives you a little bit back.
Definitely, yeah. The wide, like we were talking about earlier, it's hard to find a good wide angle lens that's cheap. Mm-hmm. But a focal reducer will make them all wider and, you know, faster. So that definitely the speed boosters are a very, very good option. But okay, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. Everyone, you know, I think really are. I'm always so bad at ending streams. I've done like 100 streams and I still can't end them properly. But I wanted to thank you both for coming on today. I really appreciate your time and all your vast experience and knowledge that you're able to share, and your thoughts on Micro Four Thirds and the newer S series from Panasonic. Hopefully you guys have a little better feel, the audience, of our thoughts on the 2 systems. But hopefully we'll have them back again soon. So I guess we'll call it. I need to move on to my next stream. So thanks again, everyone, and thanks everyone for being here.
Yeah, thanks
Any
everyone.
last words, Matti? Okay. We'll see you guys later. Thanks. I got to figure out how to end this.